If you rely on Social Security to pay your bills, buy groceries, or cover medical costs, the year 2026 is going to matter more than you think. New payment schedules are already set, a cost of living increase is in place, and behind the scenes, lawmakers are debating changes that could mean hundreds of extra dollars per month for millions of Americans, or nothing at all if nothing changes. Most seniors have no idea exactly how much they should be receiving when their money is arriving, or what rules are quietly shifting. Today, we are breaking it all down: the dates, the dollar amounts, and the changes that could directly affect your financial security next year. Because this is your money, and you deserve to understand it clearly. What Social Security 2026 really means for your monthly income. For millions of Americans, Social Security is not extra income. It is the foundation. It pays for housing, food, utilities, prescriptions, and everyday survival. That is why understanding what is happening in 2026 is so important and why confusion can be costly. In 2026, Social Security payments are continuing with adjustments that affect nearly every type of recipient. That includes retired workers, people receiving disability benefits, SSI recipients, survivors, and spouses. While headlines often focus on percentages, what truly matters is how those changes show up in your bank account each month. The average Social Security payment in 2026 is just under $2,000 per month. For some recipients, especially those who delayed claiming benefits until age 70, monthly payments can exceed $5,000. But most Americans fall somewhere in between, and every dollar counts. A cost of living adjustment is already in effect, designed to help benefits keep up with inflation. On paper, this increase sounds helpful. In reality, rising costs in healthcare, housing, and food mean many seniors feel little relief. That disconnect is fueling new debates in Washington over how Social Security increases are calculated and whether they truly reflect senior expenses. At the same time, payment schedules, income limits for working beneficiaries, and benefit formulas are being closely watched as millions of households struggle with higher costs. The key point is this: 2026 is not just another year, it is a turning point, and understanding what is changing and what is not gives you control in a system that often feels overwhelming. Let me ask you this: do you know exactly how much Social Security you should be receiving in 2026? If you're unsure, or if your check already feels too small, comment "Check my benefits" below. You are not alone, and this conversation matters. February 2026, Social Security payment dates explained clearly. One of the most common sources of confusion for Social Security recipients is the payment schedule. Many people expect their benefits to arrive on the same date every month. In reality, Social Security uses a staggered system, and February 2026 is a clear example of how that system works. In 2026, Social Security payments are still issued based primarily on your date of birth, not on when you retired or how long you have been receiving benefits. This applies to retirement benefits, disability benefits, and survivor benefits. If you were born between the 1st and the 10th of any month, your February 2026 payment is scheduled for the second Wednesday of the month. That date is February 11th. If you were born between the 11th and the 20th, your payment is scheduled for the third Wednesday, which falls on February 18th. And if you were born between the 21st and the 31st, your payment arrives on the fourth Wednesday, February 25th. These dates are important because many seniors plan their bills, rent, groceries, and medications around them. A delay of even a few days can cause real stress. The Social Security Administration advises recipients not to panic if a payment does not arrive immediately. The first step is to contact your bank or credit union to confirm there are no issues with your account. Only after waiting 3 business days past your scheduled payment date should you contact Social Security directly. Understanding your exact payment date is not optional anymore. It is a basic financial tool. And in a year when every dollar matters, knowing when your money arrives helps you stay in control. How much Social Security pays in 2026? Average versus maximum benefits. When people talk about Social Security increases, the first question is almost always the same: how much will I actually receive? In 2026, the answer depends heavily on when you claimed benefits and your work history, but there are clear benchmarks every recipient should understand. For most retirees, the average Social Security payment in 2026 is just under $2,000 per month. That amount reflects the recent cost of living adjustment and applies to millions of Americans who claimed benefits at or near full retirement age. For households relying primarily on Social Security, this average figure represents the financial reality many are facing. At the higher end of the scale are individuals who delayed claiming benefits until age 70. In 2026, the maximum possible Social Security benefit can exceed $5,000 per month, with some recipients receiving as much as $5,200. These higher payments are the result of delayed retirement credits and long-term higher earnings. However, it is important to be realistic. The vast majority of beneficiaries are not receiving the maximum. Most seniors fall much closer to the average, especially those who retired earlier, earned modest incomes, or spent years out of the workforce caring for family. For people receiving SSI, SSDI, survivor benefits, or spousal benefits, monthly amounts vary widely. While these groups also receive cost of living adjustments, their checks are often smaller and more sensitive to rising costs in healthcare, housing, and utilities. Understanding where your benefit falls, average, below average, or near the maximum, is essential. It shapes how you budget, how you plan, and how vulnerable you may be to future increases in living expenses. The 2026 COLA increase. What 2.8% really means. One of the most talked about changes to Social Security in 2026 is the cost of living adjustment, often called COLA. On paper, the COLA increase for 2026 is set at 2.8%. For many seniors, that number sounds reasonable. In real life, the impact feels far more complicated. For the average retiree, a 2.8% increase translates to roughly $50 to $60 more per month. That means a typical payment rises from about $1,940 to just under $2,000. While any increase is better than none, many recipients report that this adjustment barely keeps pace with rising expenses. Healthcare costs are a major reason. Medicare Part B premiums have also increased, and for many seniors, those higher premiums absorb a significant portion of the COLA raise. In some cases, beneficiaries see little to no net gain once healthcare costs are deducted. Housing is another pressure point. Rent, property taxes, insurance, and utilities have risen faster than the official inflation numbers used to calculate COLA. Food prices and prescription costs continue to strain fixed incomes, especially for older Americans managing chronic health conditions. This gap between what COLA provides and what seniors actually experience is fueling growing frustration. Many recipients feel that the adjustment reflects the economy on paper, not the reality at the grocery store or pharmacy. The key takeaway is this: the 2.8% COLA is not a bonus. It is an attempt to preserve purchasing power, and for many households, it is falling short. That shortfall is why lawmakers are now debating deeper changes to how Social Security increases are calculated. Why Medicare costs are eating into your Social Security increase. For many seniors, the most frustrating part of the 2026 Social Security increase is not the size of the COLA itself, but what happens to that increase once Medicare premiums are deducted. Medicare Part B premiums are automatically taken out of most Social Security checks. When those premiums rise, they quietly reduce the real value of your benefit increase. In 2026, Part B premiums increased again, and for many recipients, that increase absorbed a noticeable portion of the 2.8% COLA. This creates a painful reality. On paper, your Social Security benefit goes up. In practice, your monthly deposit barely changes, or in some cases, feels exactly the same as before. Seniors often describe this as running in place financially, despite official claims of higher benefits. Healthcare costs do not stop at premiums. Deductibles, co-pays, prescription drug prices, and out-of-pocket expenses continue to rise. For retirees managing chronic conditions, even small increases in medical costs can overwhelm a modest Social Security raise. This is especially difficult for lower-income seniors, SSI recipients, and people with disabilities. These groups spend a larger share of their income on healthcare, leaving less room to absorb rising costs elsewhere. The core issue is that Social Security adjustments and Medicare costs are moving in opposite directions. While COLA is designed to keep up with inflation, healthcare expenses often rise faster than the formula anticipates. This growing imbalance is one of the strongest arguments behind calls for reform. Because when a benefit increase disappears into healthcare costs, it fails its most basic purpose, helping seniors maintain financial stability. The push to change. How Social Security COLA is calculated. Behind the scenes in Washington, one of the most important Social Security debates in years is quietly gaining momentum. It centers on a single question: is the current COLA formula fair to seniors? Right now, Social Security cost of living adjustments are calculated using a measure called CPIW, the Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners and clerical workers. In simple terms, this index tracks inflation based on what working-age Americans spend their money on. The problem is obvious to many retirees. Seniors do not spend money the same way workers do. Older Americans spend significantly more on health care, prescriptions, housing, utilities, and insurance. These are precisely the categories that have risen fastest in recent years. Yet CPIW does not fully reflect those costs, meaning COLA increases often underestimate the real inflation seniors experience. Because of this gap, lawmakers, economists, and senior advocacy groups are pushing for a shift to a different formula known as CPIE, the Consumer Price Index for the elderly. This index is designed to track spending patterns specific to people age 62 and older. According to analysts, if CPIE were adopted, Social Security benefits could rise substantially over time. Estimates suggest this change could mean an additional $300 to $500 per month for many beneficiaries when fully implemented. That would be life-changing income for millions of households. This proposed change would not only affect retirees, it would impact people receiving SSDI, SSI, survivor benefits, veterans benefits tied to Social Security, and railroad retirement benefits, nearly 74 million Americans in total. As of now, CPIE is still a proposal, not a guarantee, but it represents one of the most significant opportunities in years to make Social Security increases reflect real senior expenses. How the CPIE change could add hundreds to your monthly check. To understand why the proposed CPIE change has generated so much attention, it helps to focus on what it could mean in real dollars, because this is not about small adjustments. For many households, this could fundamentally change monthly finances. Under the current CPIW system, COLA increases often lag behind the true cost of living for seniors. Healthcare, prescriptions, housing, and utilities take up a growing share of fixed incomes, yet these expenses are underweighted in the formula. That is why a 2.8% increase can feel like almost nothing. Supporters of CPIE argue that recalculating COLA using senior-specific spending patterns would finally align benefits with reality. Analysts estimate that if CPIE were adopted, monthly Social Security benefits could rise by an additional $300 to $500 over time compared to the current system. For someone living on an average Social Security check, that difference could mean the ability to afford medications without cutting groceries, or to keep up with rent and utility bills without relying on credit cards or family support. For SSI and SSDI recipients, the impact could be even more significant, as these groups already operate on extremely tight budgets. Importantly, this potential increase would not be limited to retirees alone. Survivor benefit recipients, disabled workers, veterans receiving benefits tied to Social Security, and railroad retirement beneficiaries would also be affected. In total, roughly 74 million Americans could see higher payments if CPIE becomes law. However, it is critical to be clear, this change is not automatic. It requires legislative action. Without pressure, proposals like CPIE often stall quietly. That is why understanding what is at stake matters. Because when people know the numbers, they understand what they stand to gain or lose, depending on what happens next. Working while on Social Security, the 2026 earnings test explained many Americans are surprised to learn that working while receiving Social Security can still reduce their monthly benefits. In 2026, this rule remains in place, and for some seniors, it creates a difficult and often misunderstood trade-off. If you have not yet reached full retirement age, Social Security applies what is known as the earnings test. This rule allows you to work and earn income, but only up to a certain limit before your benefits are affected. In 2026, that annual earnings limit is $24,480. Here's how it works. If your income stays below that amount, your Social Security benefits are paid in full. But if you earn more than the limit, Social Security withholds $1 in benefits for every $2 you earn above the threshold. For seniors trying to supplement their income in an expensive economy, this can feel like a penalty for continuing to work. Supporters of reform argue that this rule is outdated. Many older Americans work not by choice, but by necessity. Rising housing costs, healthcare expenses, and inflation push retirees back into the workforce, often in part-time or low-paying jobs. Losing benefits because of those efforts feels deeply unfair to many. The good news is that the earnings limit has increased slightly for 2026, allowing seniors to earn more than in previous years before benefits are withheld. Still, critics argue that the increase is modest and does not reflect the true cost of living. It is also important to note that once you reach full retirement age, the earnings test no longer applies. At that point, you can work and earn any amount without reducing your Social Security benefits. Understanding this rule is essential because without knowing the limits, some seniors unintentionally reduce the income they rely on most. Why many seniors say the earnings test is fundamentally unfair. For many older Americans, the Social Security earnings test feels less like a policy rule and more like a punishment. After decades of work and contributions to the system, being told that earning additional income can reduce your benefits strikes many seniors as deeply unfair. The frustration comes from a simple reality. Social Security was designed as earned income. Workers pay into the system their entire lives with the expectation that benefits will support them in retirement. Yet under the earnings test, seniors who have not reached full retirement age can see part of those earned benefits withheld simply because they continue working. This creates a difficult choice. Some seniors want to work to stay active, socially engaged, or mentally sharp. Others work because they have no choice. Rising rent, food prices, and medical bills make a single Social Security check insufficient. For these individuals, the earnings test feels like a barrier to survival rather than a safeguard of the system. Critics also argue that the rule does not reflect today's economy. Many retirees work part-time or take temporary jobs that offer limited income and no benefits. Losing Social Security dollars on top of low wages makes it harder, not easier, to stay financially stable. There is also confusion. Some seniors avoid working altogether because they fear losing benefits even when their earnings would fall below the limit. Others work without understanding the rule and are shocked when their checks are reduced months later. While Social Security does eventually recalculate benefits after full retirement age, that reassurance offers little comfort in the moment. Bills must be paid now, not later. This is why calls to reform or eliminate the earnings test continue to grow louder. For many seniors, the rule no longer matches the reality of aging in America. How the 2026 payment schedule affects monthly budgeting for seniors living on a fixed income when Social Security arrives can be just as important as how much arrives. In 2026, the payment schedule itself plays a quiet but powerful role in how millions of households manage their monthly budgets. Social Security does not pay everyone at the beginning of the month. Payments are spread across the second, third, and fourth Wednesdays, depending on your birth date. For some recipients, this means waiting until late in the month before funds arrive, even as rent, utilities, and insurance premiums may already be due. This timing can create real pressure. Bills do not adjust themselves to government schedules. Grocery costs, prescription refills, and transportation expenses continue regardless of when Social Security is deposited. For seniors without savings or credit flexibility, even a short delay can lead to late fees, overdrafts, or difficult trade-offs. February adds another layer of complexity. It is a shorter month, and in some years, weekends and holidays can slow processing times at banks and financial institutions. While Social Security deposits are generally reliable, the perception of delay can still cause anxiety, especially for those living paycheck to paycheck. That is why financial planning around payment dates is critical. Knowing your exact deposit day allows you to schedule bills more strategically, set up automatic payments, and avoid unnecessary penalties. Direct deposit plays an important role here, ensuring funds arrive as quickly as possible. In 2026, understanding the payment schedule is not just helpful information, it is a practical survival tool. And for many seniors, small planning adjustments can make a meaningful difference in financial stability throughout the year. Who benefits most? From the 2026 Social Security changes. The changes and updates taking place in Social Security for 2026 do not affect everyone equally. Some groups stand to benefit more than others, while some remain especially vulnerable to rising costs despite the adjustments. The largest group impacted is retired workers and their families. For millions of seniors, Social Security provides the majority of their monthly income. Even small changes in benefit amounts, payment timing, or health care costs can have an outsized effect on daily life. For these households, COLA adjustments and potential reforms like CPIE are not abstract policy debates. They directly determine whether basic expenses can be covered. People receiving Social Security Disability Insurance, or SSDI, are another critical group. Many disability recipients have limited or no ability to supplement their income through work. This makes them especially sensitive to inflation in housing, food, and medical care. Any improvement in how benefits are adjusted for cost of living could significantly improve financial stability for this population. SSI recipients, including low-income seniors and individuals with disabilities, also face unique challenges. SSI payments are lower than standard retirement benefits, leaving little margin for rising costs. Even modest increases can help, but delays or offsets from healthcare expenses often erase those gains. Survivors, including widows, widowers, and children receiving benefits, rely on Social Security as a financial lifeline after loss. Veterans receiving benefits tied to Social Security, as well as railroad retirement beneficiaries, are also included in these system-wide changes. Altogether, nearly 74 million Americans are affected. Understanding where you fit within this system helps clarify what is at stake and why changes to Social Security policy matter far beyond headlines. Why Social Security still matters in an inflation-driven economy. In an economy shaped by persistent inflation, Social Security plays a role that goes far beyond a monthly check. For many seniors, it is the only stable source of income that adjusts, at least in part, to rising prices. Inflation affects nearly every aspect of daily life, but it hits older Americans especially hard. Seniors spend a larger share of their income on essentials that tend to rise faster than average inflation. Housing costs continue to climb, utility bills fluctuate with energy prices, grocery costs remain elevated, prescription drugs and medical services place constant pressure on fixed incomes. In this environment, Social Security acts as a financial anchor. While wages may stagnate and savings can be depleted, Social Security provides predictable, inflation-adjusted income that arrives every month. Even when COLA increases feel modest, they help prevent purchasing power from eroding completely over time. Without these annual adjustments, many seniors would fall further behind each year. That is why debates over COLA formulas, Medicare offsets, and benefit adequacy matter so much. They determine whether Social Security merely slows financial decline or actively helps seniors keep up with the cost of living. The reality is that Social Security was never designed to make people wealthy. It was designed to prevent poverty in old age. In today's economy, that mission is being tested. As inflation reshapes retirement, Social Security remains one of the few protections seniors have against economic forces they cannot control. Understanding how it works, how it changes, and how it may evolve is essential for anyone relying on it to stay financially stable. What seniors should do right now to protect their benefits. With so many changes, debates, and rising costs surrounding Social Security in 2026, one question matters most. What should you actually do right now? The first step is simple but essential. Know your numbers. Confirm how much you are receiving each month, what day your payment arrives, and whether any deductions, such as Medicare premiums, are reducing your net deposit. Many seniors are surprised to learn their actual take-home amount is lower than expected. The second step is to stay informed about policy changes, especially those related to COLA and benefit calculations. Proposals like switching from CPIW to CPIE could significantly affect your future income. These changes do not happen automatically, and silence often means delay. Staying aware helps you understand what may be coming and why it matters. Third, review your broader financial support options. Social Security is critical, but it may not be the only help available. Programs like SNAP, Medicaid, energy assistance, and prescription drug support can ease pressure on fixed incomes. Many eligible seniors never apply simply because they are unaware. Fourth, protect how you receive your benefits. Direct deposit remains the safest and fastest way to ensure payments arrive on time. If you rely on mailed checks, delays and disruptions can create unnecessary stress. Finally, do not underestimate the value of asking questions. If something about your benefits does not make sense, seek clarification, whether through Social Security, trusted advisors, or reliable information sources. In 2026, Social Security remains a lifeline. Protecting it means staying engaged, informed, and proactive, because understanding your benefits is not just about money. It is about maintaining stability, dignity, and peace of mind in retirement. Why speaking up matters for the future of Social Security. For many seniors, it can feel like decisions about Social Security are made far away by people who will never feel the consequences. That sense of distance often leads to silence. But in reality, the future of Social Security is shaped in part by who speaks up and who does not. Programs like Social Security do not change quietly by accident. They change because lawmakers respond to pressure, priorities, and public attention. When millions of beneficiaries stay silent, proposals stall. When people speak collectively, reforms gain momentum. This is especially true right now. Debates over COLA calculations, the CPIE proposal, Medicare offsets, and earnings limits are all active conversations. None of these changes are guaranteed. Each one depends on whether policymakers believe the issue matters to voters. For older Americans, speaking up does not mean protesting or navigating complex political systems. It can be as simple as contacting a representative, responding to public comment periods, or adding your voice to discussions that raise awareness. Even sharing accurate information with family, friends, and neighbors helps build understanding. Many seniors underestimate the impact of their voice, but Social Security affects nearly 74 million Americans. That is not a small group. When beneficiaries speak together, it becomes difficult to ignore. Staying informed is the first step. Speaking up is the second. And while no single action guarantees change, silence almost guarantees that nothing will. The future of Social Security will be shaped by choices made today, and those choices are influenced by whether the people who rely on the system make themselves heard. The final message. Every Social Security recipient needs to hear. As we reach the end of this report, there is one message every Social Security recipient should carry with them into 2026. Understanding your benefits is no longer optional. Social Security is not just a government program. For millions of Americans, it is the difference between stability and uncertainty. It pays the rent. It keeps the lights on. It covers prescriptions and groceries. And in an economy shaped by inflation, healthcare costs, and rising living expenses, every decision surrounding Social Security matters more than ever. The changes discussed here, payment schedules, COLA increases, Medicare offsets, earnings limits, and proposed reforms like CPIE, are not isolated details. Together, they shape how secure or fragile retirement feels on a month-to-month basis. The system itself is complex. That complexity often benefits silence and confusion, but knowledge changes that balance. When you know when your money arrives, how much you should be receiving, and what forces influence those numbers, you regain control in a system that can otherwise feel overwhelming. It is also important to remember this. Social Security was designed to protect dignity in older age. Staying informed, asking questions, and planning around your benefits is not complaining. It is responsible. It is necessary. You worked for these benefits. You paid into the system. You earned the right to understand it fully. As policies continue to evolve and debates continue in Washington, staying informed is your strongest protection. Because in today's environment, security does not come from assumptions. It comes from awareness. And that awareness, combined with preparation, is what helps ensure that Social Security continues to serve the purpose it was created for, helping you live with stability, independence, and peace of mind.